So you've just opened up your Rebellion Rising Precon and you're thinking of how to make upgrades to it. And instead of just giving you some cards and what I think would be good additions to the deck, kind of want to go over the process of how I made these upgrades. And that way you can use this same strategy when making upgrades to your version of the deck. As usual, we'll be making 2 different upgrades to the deck, and in the second version, I'm actually going to have more of an emphasis on Othari than on the original Precon commander. So the first thing that I want to do when checking out the deck is see what the themes are, and then potentially choose a theme that's in that deck and enhance that theme a little bit more. So as we're looking through the Rebellion Rising Precon, we'll see that there's a pretty heavy emphasis on tokens and combat. We also have a pretty light equipment-based strategy and a few cards that can support that. Now, Nyali doesn't really synergize that much with equipment, so I'm actually going to lean a little bit more into the token strategy. Now that I've figured out what I want to do with the deck, I'm actually going to think about where I want to take it in terms of the power level. So with this first upgrade, we're not really going to affect the power level that much. We're just going to kind of shift it and make it a little bit more focused with the direction that I want to take it in. So now that we've identified what we want the deck to be doing and what the deck is doing currently, we can now make cuts according to our goals. And I generally like to make cuts first because it's going to set up realistic expectations for how many cards I can add to the deck. So starting off with what I did cut, we've got some of the less impactful token producers in our deck. I know that we want to kind of push it more in terms of the tokens, but I don't want to be using cards that are just kind of one shot to make 1 or 2 tokens. I'd rather use repeatable sources of token generation. Cutting equipment is also pretty easy since these aren't really contributing that much to our token strategy. Martial Coup was replaced with White Sun's Twilight, but overall we're cutting things that are either low impact in terms of our strategy, or we're cutting cards that don't contribute to our strategy very well. Now that I've got 22 cuts, I can add 22 cards. So primarily what I'm looking for when I'm making these additions is, like I was saying before, a little bit of repeatable token generation, stuff like Heliod, and also give our stuff Vigilance. Platoon Dispenser is a new card from Brothers War that has potential to draw you cards in addition to creating 1/1 soldiers. And since we're going to have a large board state with double striking tokens, I kind of want to take advantage of that. We did actually add the Sword of Forge and Frontier. I thought this would be a fun include since we're going to get double triggers on the sword, being able to play potentially 2 extra lands and just seeing a bunch of cards in addition to the cards that we're going to see with Nyali. And speaking of casting cards from exile, Commander Liara Portier is actually perfect for what we're doing, since she'll make the cards we cast off of Nyali reduced as well. So I like that synergy. Strixhaven Stadium can potentially take players out pretty quickly considering of the double strike. And then we've also got Throne of the God Pharaoh, which will allow us to kind of focus on one player, but at the same time kind of spread out our damage to everybody else. Guardian of Faith can help let us phase out our tokens, avoid stuff like Cyclonic Rift potentially. And then we've also got the Grand Crescendo, which will, in addition to making our board state much larger depending on how much you pay into the X, it's also going to give creatures you control indestructible till the end of turn. So a really great protection spell in addition to a token generator. And then the last card I want to talk about is this Cavalier of Flame that I've added to the deck. It can give our creatures haste in addition to pumping them up by +1/+0, which is going to be really great in conjunction with the double strike that our commander is going to be giving them. There's a lot stapled onto this card, and I think it's actually a pretty decent upgrade to a deck that wants to go wide like this one does. If you're enjoying the video so far, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Like I said in the beginning of this video, we're going to upgrade the deck a little bit heavier than we did in that previous version. We're also going to switch out the commander to Othari. Othari has that ability where when it attacks, you make experience counters and then you make rebels. So since we get a benefit from moving to combat, I want to take as many combats as possible and take advantage of Othari's ability. Starting off with, we've got the creatures. We had stuff like Battle Angels of Tyr, which since we'll get those extra combats, we're going to be able to make multiple of those Myriad tokens. And then as far as extra combats go, we've added Morag, Fury of Akom, Aurelia the War Leader, as well as Scourge of the Throne, and then Karlach. And I actually think Karlach is a really sweet creature. Gives your creatures first strike, and it doesn't even need to attack itself. And I did add a few ways to help with our experience counters, like the Grateful Apparition, Norn's Choirmaster, which funny enough both come from the Corrupting Influence Precon, and then we've also added Lae'zel, Mondrak, Glory Dominus from all B1. Pretty sweet include, since we can double up on the Authority tokens in addition to Anointed Procession in the enchantments. Upgrading the instants and sorceries, pretty straightforward. We've got cards that give us extra combat, stuff like round 2, which has flashback, waves of aggression, World at War, all pretty fantastic. Open the armory so we can actually tutor up for some of our important equipment, a little bit of extra ramp power with cards like Jessica's Will, and then some board wipes, Blasphemous Act, Farewell. As far as the instants go, I want a little bit more ways to protect Othari, in addition to the Boros Charm and the Teferi's Protection. And since I want to get Othari out ASAP, we've added a ton of ramp to the deck, a lot of the 2-drop stuff, Everflowing Chalice size, a little bit of extra synergy with the Proliferate kind of stuff that we can do. We've also got the Phyrexian Ultra, which can combo with our Aggravated Assault if we have enough generation of Othari. So essentially, if Othari has 5 experience counters, when you swing with Othari, you'll make 5 rebels, and then from there you can sacrifice the rebels in your second main phase to generate 5 mana, and then from there you can activate an Aggravated Assault, move to combat, swing, you'll make 6 rebels. You can still sacrifice 5 as long as you can activate the Aggravated Assault during a main phase. It doesn't need to be activated during a main phase. It's pretty important. A few extra ways to draw cards, like the Tome of Legends, and then we've also added this Halo Fountain, which in addition to being some card advantage, can also just be a win condition if we can swing enough with Othari. And since we do want to be taking a few extra combat phase, we still want to be able to swing with the rebels that we're creating with Othari, since Othari has those rebels enter the battlefield tapped and attacking. So if they become untapped and you move to a new combat phase, they are still affected by summoning sickness. So we need to give them haste somehow. Hammer of Perforos is going to give all of our creatures haste. Now in the Precon, we do have Roar of Resistance, which gives our tokens haste, which is basically the same thing. Fervor, which can give all of our creatures haste. And then we've also added this Breath of Fury, which has a really great interaction with Othari. Essentially what you're going to do is you are going to enchant a rebel with the Breath of Fury. You're going to swing at someone, and as long as you can connect, you're going to sacrifice the rebel that you just swung at, and then you can put that Breath of Fury on another rebel that you control, and then from there you can swing at them with that rebel, and you can keep moving to combat as long as you have a haste enabler. You need a haste enabler in order for this to work. And then a few extra ways to kind of take advantage of Othari's abilities, stuff like the Strionic Resonator is going to be super sweet. Divine Visitation will allow us to make 4/4s with flying instead of the 2/2s, so it's just going to up the clock super hard. Impact Tremors, a little bit of extra damage. You can also add Perforos too if you really wanted to. And then we've got the Goblin Bombardment, which we can use to really control the board or just finish players off if we need to. Shared Animosity, it depends on how you stack the Shared Animosity trigger. The creatures that are entering tapped and attacking will not get the Shared Animosity bonus. They need to actually attack so that the Shared Animosity can trigger. But what you can do is resolve the Othari trigger first. So that way when Shared Animosity resolves, it checks all of the other rebels that you have on the battlefield. So when using Shared Animosity with Othari, be sure to resolve Othari first, and then your Shared Animosity to get maximum benefit from it. Upgrading the lands is pretty straightforward as usual. Added a few of the lands that can enter the battlefield untapped. Shock lands, fetch lands. We've got the Spectator Seating as well as the Sundown Pass. I like these cards. Clifftop Retreat, a great include. You could also do a Hall of Heliod's Generosity if you really wanted to, be able to get these enchantments back potentially. But outside of that, pretty straightforward. Thanks for checking out the video, guys. If you want to see the Corrupting Influence Precon upgraded, then check out this video here.